Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. They wanted my bridge, my land, my rules be damned. What started with a polite letter from the HOA turned into sabotage, lawsuits, and a life-or-death standoff. But they forgot one thing. I don't negotiate with trespassers, especially when my wife's life is on the line. They say a man's land is his kingdom. If that's true, then my kingdom's throne is a rusted lawn chair bolted to the porch of a cedar farmhouse halfway up a hill in eastern Kentucky. From there, I can see the cows grazing, the woods curling around the back of the property, and most importantly, the bridge. The damn bridge. One way in, one way out. Built by my grandfather in the 70s out of Appalachian oak, steel beams, and stubbornness. It crosses a shallow, rocky creek that swells like hell in spring and freezes to a sheet in the winter. But it's mine. That's the important part. The bridge, the road, the pasture, the house, every inch of it is in my name, in the county records, and backed by 3 generations of sweat and calluses. It had been quiet until they moved in. Eco Vista. That's what they call the place. 27 identical custom-built boxes with solar panels, bamboo fencing, and shiny SUVs. HOA run, of course. Modern, sustainable, and perched right across the creek from my property, like a smug little suburb peeking over the fence at the last free man in Kentucky. I knew trouble was coming when I got the first letter. Folded crisp and sealed like a wedding invite. The kind of envelope that smells like corporate perfume. It was signed Karen Gilmore, president of Eco Vista HOA. I didn't know her yet, but the name Karen was already working against her. The letter said, and I quote, "We would like to formally request a neighborly discussion regarding the use of your bridge as a secondary community, exit in the interest of safety, and shared regional accessibility. Now, I'm not a spiteful man. Hell, I've loaned out my tractor, pulled people out of ditches, even let hunters pass through when they asked nice. But shared regional accessibility, that smelled like bureaucracy hiding behind a smile." I wrote back a day later, pen and paper, not email, and kept it short. Private land. Bridge not for public use. Not interested. Regards, Tom Maddox. I figured that'd be the end of it. It wasn't. 2 weeks later came another letter, this time not as polite. It was from a law firm I'd never heard of, Pender and Lang. The tone was different. Less friendly neighbors, more legal assertion. According to them, the bridge could potentially qualify for prescriptive easement status under County Infrastructure Code due to implied community benefit. In plain English, they were threatening to declare my bridge a public path if I didn't cooperate. Said my refusal was a violation of communal interest. That's when the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I didn't waste time. I drove straight to Harlan County's clerk office, pulled my property records, and called my buddy Dale, a real estate attorney who owed me a favor for helping him fix his busted septic tank last fall. We pored over every document. Deed was clean. Boundary lines untouched. The bridge sat a full 27 feet inside my land, from both ends. Dale confirmed what I already knew. They had no case. Yet. But here's the catch. Dale said, if I ever implicitly allowed access and didn't contest it, they could start building a case. One neighbor uses it for a shortcut. One delivery guy crosses it because Google Maps said so. If I let it slide, I'd be setting precedent. And precedent is how you lose a bridge without ever selling it. So I went on the offensive. First, I installed 3 aluminum signs at the foot of the bridge. Private property. No trespassing. Not a public thoroughfare. 2 on steel posts. 1 bolted to the oak railing. Second, I moved an old shipping container to partially block the bridge on the far end. Enough to let my truck through, but stop any joyriding Prius dead in its tracks. I even caught one of their residents, tall guy, man bun, Subaru, snapping photos from his side. When I asked what he was doing, he gave me some crap about documenting environmental hazards. I told him the only hazard was his attitude and that he had 10 seconds to clear off my creek bank. He left, but I saw him talking to a woman the next day. Short blonde bob, aviator sunglasses, clipboard. That had to be Karen. She made her first appearance in person not long after. I was feeding the cows when I heard a car door slam. I looked up and saw a white Jeep Grand Cherokee parked at the edge of the bridge. She was standing beside it, arms crossed, face stretched into that tight corporate smile that never touches the eyes. I walked over slow, wiping my hands on a rag. "Mister, "Maddox," she said like she was calling roll. "That's me," I said. "And you must be Karen." She actually looked pleased. "I appreciate your promptness." "I wasn't summoned," I replied, deadpan. She ignored the jab. "I wanted to speak face to face. There's a lot of potential for mutual benefit here. If we can come to an arrangement—" "There is no arrangement," I said, cutting her off. "The bridge is mine. Not shared, not open." Private Karen blinked, but only once. "Are you sure you want to be so inflexible about something that could benefit your community? You do understand the concept of civic responsibility?" I took a step forward. "Lady, I raise cattle, not committees. Civic responsibility means taking care of my own. And right now, that includes keeping my road mine." She opened her mouth, then closed it. I could see the wheels turning. That Jeep wasn't just her car. It was a chess piece. And she had more moves coming. I knew the type. HOA presidents don't give up. They wear you down, not with fists, but with forms, with threats disguised as kindness, with fake concern and a permanent sense of entitlement. As she drove off, tires crunching over gravel, I felt it in my gut. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. The thing about people like Karen is, they never attack head-on. No, they chip away. A little nudge here, a suggestion there. By the time you notice they've moved in, they're already rearranging the furniture in your living room. That's how the second phase began. Not with another letter, but with a sign. I spotted it one morning after feeding the hogs. Right on the far side of the creek, planted just beyond the property line, was a laminated placard zip-tied to a green metal stake. It read, "Temporary Community Detour authorized by Ecovista HOA." Arrows pointed directly to my bridge. I stood there for a full minute, slack-jawed. They hadn't even bothered to call. No courtesy, no paperwork, just a sign, like it was some hiking trail. I ripped it out of the ground, marched back across the bridge, and tossed it onto the burn pile. 10 minutes later, I was on the phone with Dale again. He didn't sound surprised. "They're testing boundaries," he said. "Literally. You sure I can't just blow the damn thing up and call it a draw?" "Tom, for the last time, you can't blow up the bridge." "Not even a little." "No. But I'll draw up a cease and desist. Meanwhile, you need documentation. If they start using that bridge regularly, and you don't stop it, they can make a legal case for community access. And that's when they screw you." That's all I needed to hear. That weekend, I became the kind of guy I used to laugh at. Trail cams, motion sensors, a cheap DVR from Walmart, and 4 Chinese-made bullet cameras mounted on metal poles, 2 facing each side of the bridge, 1 watching the approach, and 1 trained on the gate. I ran the wires myself, crawled under the porch like a possum, and set up the DVR in my utility room. Now, every time a vehicle crossed the bridge, I had it on camera with a timestamp, and if I was lucky, a license plate. I even spray-painted a message onto the bridge deck in bright yellow. "Crossing equals trespassing. You are being recorded." By Monday, the game had changed. And wouldn't you know it, that's when they started sending in the scouts. They never came as one group. It was always little tests. One morning, a woman in yoga pants and a Tesla slowly crept up to the bridge, paused, and pretended to check her phone while her front tires kissed the edge of my land. Another afternoon, a delivery van tried to make the turn, then reversed when they saw the cameras. One night, around 2 a.m., some dumbass on a bicycle actually crossed the bridge, rode around in a circle, then left. It was like watching raccoons testing an electric fence. Every incident got logged. I made it a habit. Wake up, coffee, check the footage, jot it in the logbook. On April 5th, 4 separate vehicles tried to cross. On April 6th, 2 actually made it halfway before turning around. On April 8th, some idiot left tire marks in the gravel that ran right up to the barn path. That's when I dropped the hammer. I dragged a half-ton hay trailer across the bridge and chained it to a cinder block. Left just enough clearance for my truck to pass. Anyone else? Good luck. You'd either need a lift kit or divine intervention. I wasn't trying to be aggressive. I was trying to stay ahead. If this was chess, I was down to a handful of pieces, and Karen had a full row of pawns marching up the board. And just like clockwork, she came knocking again. This time, with backup. 2 men in collared shirts and lanyards showed up at my property line, talking with Karen like they were city inspectors. She waved at me across the creek, too friendly. I stayed silent, arms crossed, watching them point at the bridge and take photos. One guy even pulled out a measuring wheel and started logging the distance from the road to the bridge. I didn't go down to meet them. I didn't have to. They were standing on their side, but I made damn sure they saw me holding my phone and recording them right back. Later that night, I reviewed the footage, frame by frame. Karen had a folder in her hand. When she opened it, I caught a glimpse of a map. Looked official, property lines, dotted routes, a red circle right over my bridge. Dale confirmed my fear the next day. They're compiling a case, probably trying to show historical use or communal value. If they can get enough evidence that people routinely use the bridge, they'll take it to the zoning board. Try to declare it a public easement. They can't do that. They can try. And if the board's sympathetic, you might be looking at a court fight. I didn't sleep much that week, but I did work. I moved my trail cams up into trees to avoid tampering, bought infrared motion sensors, and started logging foot traffic too. Even rigged up a homemade license plate capture setup with an IR floodlight and a busted laptop that still booted. Hell, I even ordered a custom time-stamped watermark overlay plug-in online. All in, maybe $500, but worth every damn penny. Because now I wasn't just watching, I was waiting. It started like any other damn morning. Blue sky, cows snorting, the smell of diesel and manure in the air, Kentucky's own version of perfume. I was sipping coffee on the porch, scratching the back of my neck, when I heard her call my name. Tom. It was my wife, Catherine. She sounded off, not like her usual, "Hey, can you fix the well pump again?" voice. This one was thinner, weaker. I dropped my mug before I even stood up. She was clutching her chest, hunched over the kitchen counter, pale as a ghost. Her breath came in short, panicked bursts. "Pain?" I asked. She nodded. Left side, radiating down the arm, classic signs. I didn't think. I just moved. I sat her down, gave her a nitrotab from the emergency bottle we kept in the pantry ever since her high blood pressure scare last fall, and called 911. I gave them coordinates, warned them about the creek, told them to take the gravel road down past the solar farm and cross the bridge. They said dispatch had us logged already. ETA, 25 minutes. I sat with her on the porch, holding her hand. She was sweating, eyes half shut. I counted the seconds in my head like it would make the ambulance move faster. 23 minutes later, I heard the siren echo through the valley, and then I heard it stop. Not fade, not arrive, just stop. I stood, ran toward the bridge, and that's when I saw it. A white Jeep Grand Cherokee parked perpendicular across the bridge like a damn barricade, not just blocking it, cutting it off completely. Like someone had parked it with the express purpose of saying, "You shall not pass." The hood was up, headlights blinking, no one inside. Across the windshield, written in thick black marker like some teenage prank, were the words, "Call me, we need to discuss access." Karen, I froze. For a second, my brain couldn't catch up to what my eyes were screaming. Then I turned and saw the red and white of the ambulance, maybe 40 feet out from the bridge, dead still, engine idling. The paramedics were out of the cab, standing beside it, confused. I sprinted across the gravel toward them. "She's having chest pain," I yelled. "They're blocked." "We can't cross," one of them said. He was young, sweating. "Not unless you move the vehicle." "There's no clearance." "There's no one inside," I snapped. "She abandoned it." "Can you move it?" "Do you have a key?" I didn't even answer, just turned and ran. Back to the barn, into the John Deere. I didn't even wait for the glow plugs to finish warming up. I fired it cold and roared toward the bridge like a man possessed. All the while, Catherine's face was burned into my skull. By the time I got there, one paramedic was on the radio, the other trying to peer across the bridge, probably wondering if I was about to make things worse. I didn't speak. I backed the tractor up, looped the steel tow chain around the Jeep's rear axle, then attached the hook to the drawbar. The Jeep was heavy, four-wheel drive, newer model, probably weighed around 5,000 pounds. Didn't matter. The chain groaned. The tractor bucked and smoked, but I pulled. It slid, back wheels over the edge first. Then the bumper scraped along the wooden planks and the whole thing teetered like a drunk on a bar stool. I revved again. The chain snapped taut, and the Jeep dropped, straight off the bridge. It hit the rocky creek bed with a crunch that echoed through the valley. Water splashed. A mirror flew off. The alarm started wailing like a wounded animal before it gurgled out under the rising water. The moment the bridge was clear, the paramedics rushed across. I flagged them toward the house, heart pounding so loud it drowned out everything. They loaded Catherine up in under a minute. One of them stayed behind for a second. "Sir, we'll take it from here." That was the right call. "Just get her safe," I said. "Tell her I love her." They nodded. The ambulance peeled out. I stood on the bridge alone, hands on my knees, breathing like I'd just run a marathon. Then I saw something glinting on the passenger seat of the half-submerged Jeep. A clipboard with paperwork. I didn't fish it out. I didn't care. Back in the house, I sat on the couch, holding Catherine's cardigan like it was a life vest. My phone buzzed 20 minutes later. Unknown number. Mr. Maddox. The voice was clipped. Female. Professional. "This is Officer Dana Rosenthal with the Harlan County Sheriff's Department. We've received a report of vehicle destruction and aggressive behavior. Are you available to give a statement?" I blinked, then laughed. Of course, she called the cops. The ambulance had barely turned the corner out of sight when I heard the sound of tires on gravel again. But this time, it wasn't help coming. It was consequence. 2 sheriff's cruisers pulled up not even an hour after Catherine left in the back of that rig. One deputy stayed in the car. The other, Officer Rosenthal, the one who'd called me, stepped out and started toward me with the look of someone who wasn't sure if they were about to arrest a hero or a maniac. Maybe both. She was in her 40s, sharp-jawed, with a clipboard in hand and mirrored sunglasses that made her unreadable. The badge on her vest caught the midday sun. "Mr. Maddox," she said evenly, "we've received a complaint involving the destruction of a vehicle. Can you walk me through what happened here today?" I did. I told her everything. No embellishments, no theatrics, just plain facts. Catherine's chest pain, the blocked bridge, the abandoned Jeep. My choice, the only choice, to remove the obstruction. She scribbled something on her clipboard and glanced toward the creek, where what was left of the Jeep still sat, half submerged like a drowned whale. Broken glass sparkled between the rocks. "You're aware this is Karen Gilmore's vehicle?" I figured as much after reading her little windshield ransom note. "She claims you intentionally destroyed her property in a fit of rage." I just stared at her. "She also says you made threats to her previously and that you've been hostile toward the HOA. "Well," I said, "I'm hostile toward toward trespassing and entitlement. But I don't make threats. I make fences. Big difference." She cracked a tiny smile. "Got any video of the incident?" "Oh, I got more than video," I said. We went inside, and I walked her straight to my little surveillance hub in the utility room. I pulled up the camera footage, high angle, clear shot, time-stamped. There was the Jeep blocking the bridge. There was me, waving at the paramedics who couldn't get through. And there was the chain, the John Deere, and the righteous descent of a 2-ton mistake into the drink. Rosenthal watched it all, arms crossed. Then I opened the audio log. The paramedics' body cam footage had picked up the words, "We cannot cross, sir. The patient's life could be in danger if we don't get through in minutes." I turned back to the officer. "Well?" She paused, lips tight. Then, "That's one hell of a defense, Mr. Maddox." Later that day, Dale called me. "She's suing you," he said, not even bothering with hello. "Of course she is." Officially filed a civil claim for destruction of property, emotional distress, and negligence. Wants $85,000 in damages. Good luck to her, I said. "I've got video, timestamps, medical emergencies, and a wife who almost died because of her stunt." "Well, it gets better," Dale said, voice thick with restrained glee. "We ran a check on the vehicle. That Jeep wasn't even in Karen's name." I blinked. "Come again?" "It's registered to a Joshua Gilmore. Her son lives in Atlanta." I let that sink in. So, she parked a car that doesn't belong to her on my private bridge to extort me, and now she's mad I saved my wife's life instead of hers. Correct. And get this, there's no active insurance on the vehicle. Expired in February. Jesus Christ. Exactly. It was like Christmas came early. A couple of days later, I got served. Official summons, civil court, Harlan County, date stamped and everything. Karen wasn't wasting time, but neither was I. Over the next week, Dale and I assembled our arsenal, camera footage, audio from the EMTS medical records showing Catherine's diagnosis, acute coronary syndrome. That alone could have killed her if treatment was delayed. Then there was the property map, clearly marking the bridge entirely on my land, with GPS coordinates and surveyor confirmation. But the cherry on top, Karen had filed her complaint before I even gave my statement to the sheriff. And in her complaint, she'd claimed she left the vehicle briefly after experiencing mechanical issues. Too bad for her, the footage showed she walked away smiling with a folder in her hand, not even bothering to pop the hood until she was parked. Like a barricade. She didn't just block a bridge, she staged it. And now that we had proof the Jeep wasn't insured and wasn't hers to begin with, we weren't just going to defend. We were going to counterattack. I signed Dale's papers with a hand that finally stopped shaking. We filed a counterclaim the same day. Malicious interference with emergency services, trespassing with intent, and reckless endangerment. Karen had tried to play HOA politics on my land. She was about to learn the hard way that out here, we still play by rules, but we come armed with evidence, tractors, and a damn good lawyer who knows how to bury people in paperwork deeper than any ditch I've ever dug. Civil court in Harlan County isn't exactly a grand arena of justice. It's a brick building next to a diner, smells like stale air and burnt coffee, and the bailiff doubles as the janitor. But that morning, it felt like the Coliseum. Karen came dressed like she was auditioning for CNN. Pearl earrings, tight little blazer, expression carved from frozen Botox. Her lawyer looked younger than the ink on his license. I half expected him to ask where the bathroom was before opening arguments. Dale leaned toward me as we sat at our little folding table. "You ready for her opening act?" "Oh, I've been ready since the moment she dropped that Jeep in my creek, like it was a sacrifice to the HOA gods." Court was called to session. Judge Henley, old school clipboard and reading glasses, presided. Local guy, smart, knew the land around here better than anyone, used to hunt deer 3 valleys over from my place. Karen's side went first. She played it up like she was a victim of hillbilly tyranny. I was frightened. He threatened me. He damaged my vehicle without warning, without provocation, and then he mocked me online. Dale raised an eyebrow at that one. Wait, what online mocking? I leaned in. I might have posted a photo of the Jeep in the creek with the caption, "Next time, bring floaties." He snorted. "We'll redact that if needed." Then came her big move. Karen's lawyer pulled out a large printed map, aged in just the right shade of yellow, and slapped it onto the evidence table. "Your Honor, we submit this historical survey from 1968, showing a route marked through what is now Mr. Maddox's property. This bridge has historically functioned as a connector between local homesteads. Therefore, we argue that it constitutes a shared easement." I stared at the map. Dale leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "That's not right," he muttered. "That route isn't even aligned with the modern GPS grid." The judge raised a brow. "Where did this document come from?" "Acquired through independent archival search," the lawyer said, voice smug. Judge Henley turned to us. "Mr. Maddox." "Objections." Dale stood. "Your Honor, we'd like to request a forensic review of this document." The signature stamp appears pixelated. That kind of distortion isn't found in typewritten documents from 1968. "We believe this may be a digital forgery." Karen stiffened. Her lawyer looked like someone had just farted into his soul. The judge approved the review. While the court clerk took the map to the back office scanner, we continued. Dale played our side of the case like a damn symphony. He presented footage from the camera showing the Jeep intentionally parked to block the bridge. Audio from the EMTs. "We're losing precious time. We can't reach the patient." Property records with modern GIS overlays showing the bridge entirely within our parcel lines. Vehicle registration records. The Jeep belonged to Karen's son out of state. Insurance status lapsed. And finally, a written statement from the EMT who treated Catherine. The patient would have suffered a cardiac event had the delay been extended. Then Dale pulled out the coup de grace. A freeze frame of Karen walking away from the parked Jeep, smiling, holding that goddamn folder. "Does this look like someone suffering mechanical failure?" he asked the judge. The judge adjusted his glasses, took a long look, then scribbled something on his notes. It got even better. The court clerk returned from the scan review of the 1968 map. She handed the report to the judge, who read it silently, then looked up, visibly irritated. "Counsel," he said to Karen's lawyer, "this document was printed on laser stock paper, manufactured post-2005. It also contains fonts created after 2000 and bears an electronically duplicated county seal. Are you telling me this is a legitimate historic record?" The lawyer stammered. Karen leaned over and whispered something into his ear. Clearly something panicked. He nodded. "We, withdraw that exhibit, Your Honor." Henley stared at him for a long time. "Duly noted." You could feel the shift in the room. Karen's story wasn't just crumbling, it was catching fire. Then, like a damn miracle, the judge turned to her and said, "Ms. Gilmore, you do understand that deliberately blocking access to emergency services is a criminal offense under Kentucky revised statutes, that your actions resulted in endangerment, and that your attempt to misrepresent this court with a forged exhibit carries additional penalties?" Her lawyer stood. "Your Honor, we'd like to move for recess." "I bet you would," Henley muttered. Court adjourned for the day. Outside, Karen stormed past me without a word. No pearls now, no smile. Just a face caught halfway between lawsuit and lawsuit withdrawal. Dale lit a cigarette and exhaled like a man 10 pounds lighter. "Want to hear the cherry on top?" he said. "Always. I just got a call. One of the EMTs is filing an official complaint to the state EMS board. Claims your wife's response time was intentionally obstructed by a known third party. You know what that means?" I nodded. "Felony obstruction charges," I said. Dale grinned. "Now that's a public service." The call came the next morning, just after I finished shoveling cow shit out of the calf barn. I wiped my hands on my jeans before answering, but the voice on the other end didn't wait for pleasantries. "Mr. Maddox? This is Assistant District Attorney Hannah Foltz, Harlan County. We've reviewed evidence submitted during your civil proceeding. There is now an open criminal investigation against Miss Karen Gilmore regarding obstruction of emergency services, trespass, and presenting falsified documents in court." I blinked, sweat still dripping down my back. "Come again?" "We'll be in touch. But in the meantime, we recommend you don't engage directly with the defendant." "This is now an active legal matter." I hung up slowly, then stood there for a moment with the phone in one hand and a pitchfork in the other, wondering if this was how justice felt. Quiet, sudden, and strangely satisfying. News travels fast in a small town, especially when it smells like blood. By the afternoon, Karen was nowhere to be seen. Her pristine white Jeep carcass had finally been towed out of the creek by some local recovery outfit, but nobody from Eco Vista came by to claim it. Probably didn't want to risk walking on feral farmer property without a bodyguard. Then came the kicker, a public notice in the Eco Vista community email chain, which, thanks to a little help from Dale's cousin who installs security systems, I got access to. It read, "Effective immediately, Karen Gilmore has been placed on indefinite administrative leave from her duties as HOA president. All inquiries should now be directed to acting chairperson Ronald Cheney Translation." They threw her under the bus before the bus even left the garage. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. By Thursday, things had escalated. Dale called again, this time laughing so hard he had to pause twice to finish the story. "She tried to countersue you again, but get this. She filed under her maiden name in a different county, claimed she was reclaiming autonomy, or some nonsense. Judge flagged it immediately ballsy," I said. "More like desperate. Oh, and the DA's office just filed formal charges. 3 counts. 1. Obstruction of emergency medical services, Class D felony. 2. Criminal trespass with intent to interfere, Class A misdemeanor. 3. Submission of falsified documentation to a court of law, felony." My jaw clenched. Think they'll actually pursue prison? They're offering her a deal. Plead guilty to obstruction and forgery, pay full restitution and a fine, and avoid jail. But she gets a record, a public one. I leaned back in my chair, looked out at the cows grazing like nothing had changed. "Take the deal, Karen," I said to no one. "Take the damn deal." Apparently she did. 2 weeks later, at a very short hearing, Karen Gilmore pled guilty as part of a deal with the county. She paid a $68,000 criminal fine, and as part of the settlement, was required to pay $25,000 in civil restitution to me and Catherine for emotional and medical damages. The judge handed down an additional sentence: 2 years probation, mandatory legal ethics classes, which, I kid you not, she objected to. A ban from holding any leadership role in an HOA for at least 5 years. Dale couldn't stop grinning when we left the courthouse. "You realize what this means," he said. "She just set precedent. That bridge is now permanently, legally private. No court in the state will touch it after this mess." "What about the HOA?" "They're scared shitless. They're avoiding you like you're radioactive. I heard Ronald Cheney told the board, and I quote, 'Nobody talks to the guy with the tractor unless you want to end up in a creek.' I couldn't help it. I laughed. Back at home, I told Catherine the news. She was recovering well, stronger by the day. We sat on the porch, holding hands in the evening light, watching the bluebirds return to their nest in the old maple. She sipped her tea and asked, "Do you think she'll ever come back?" "Not unless she brings scuba gear," I said. But still, just to be safe, I had some plans. And they didn't involve any more conversations. They involved concrete. It was the quiet that got to me. For weeks, our life had been a storm of sirens, lawyers, cameras, subpoenas, and clipboard-wielding suburban saboteurs. Then suddenly, nothing. Just whined through the pines, the occasional lowing of cattle, and the rhythmic clink of Catherine's teacup when she stirred in 2 spoons of sugar, like she always did. That silence didn't feel like peace. It felt like a truce with the devil, temporary and earned in blood. So I decided to end it my way. First thing I did, I brought in concrete, not the cheap kind. Industrial grade, 5,000 psi reinforced with rebar and a steel mesh skeleton poured into 6 new footings under each of the main bridge supports. Took 3 days, 2 rental mixers, and a crew of good old boys who didn't ask questions as long as I paid cash and provided cold beer. When it cured, the bridge didn't just feel solid, it felt like it could hold a tank. Then came the next layer, control. I installed automatic retractable bollards at both ends of the bridge, those steel cylinders that pop up out of the ground like metal fangs. Industrial grade, pressure tested. Hooked them up to a keypad, RFID tag, and a wireless controller synced to my phone. If your vehicle wasn't whitelisted, the bollards stayed up. And trust me, they're not the kind you drive over, unless you want your oil pan surgically removed. Next, cameras upgraded the old system to 4,000 infrared with license plate recognition, backup battery, and a feed that auto-uploads to cloud storage. And because this is Kentucky, and sometimes cameras ain't enough, I added motion-triggered floodlights and a discreet little turret with non-lethal pepperball rounds mounted on a tree near the gate. Legal? Borderline. But it's on private land, and the sheriff said, and I quote, "As long as no one gets hurt and you got signage, we're not asking questions." So I put up signs. Big ones. Private road, no access, trespassers will be identified. Next Jeep goes in the river on principle across the creek. The tone in Eco Vista changed real quick. Where before they'd walk their dogs up near the boundary line like they own the damn hills, now they stayed back. I started seeing subtle changes, more hedges planted along the edge. HOA meetings moved to Zoom only, and someone even installed a mirror at the junction road so they wouldn't have to make eye contact with my cameras. Ronald Cheney, the interim HOA chair, reached out once. He wrote a short, awkward letter thanking me for my measured resolution of a difficult situation and included a $100 gift card to Cracker Barrel. I mailed it back with a sticky note that read, "Keep your biscuits. Keep your distance." And as for Karen, she was gone. No forwarding address. The white Jeep never returned. Rumor had it she moved in with her sister in Ohio while she waited for the media attention to die down. Good luck with that. Turns out, one of the paramedics had a cousin in Louisville who ran a blog about emergency response delays. That post went viral, and within a week, the incident had been picked up by a local news outlet, then a regional paper, and finally, by the Daily Ledger, who ran the headline, "Farmer Yeats SUV into creek to save wife's life from HOA obstruction." Yeats. That's how I became famous. Didn't even know what the word meant until my niece explained it. There was even a podcast that interviewed Dale about property rights under HOA pressure. They titled it, "No Means No, especially when it's a bridge." But fame wasn't what I wanted. I just wanted peace, privacy. So I took the last step. At the base of the bridge, facing the Eco Vista side, I had a metal plaque welded into a boulder. It read, "Private road access by life or by permission, only trespassing is how you lose vehicles, or lawsuits, or both." Then just for good measure, I dug a trench next to the bollards, filled it with river stones and broken Jeep parts. My own little warning shrine, a reminder. A few months later, the bridge didn't just feel like a line between properties. It felt like a boundary between 2 different worlds. On one side, glass railings, synthetic lawns, HOA newsletters filled with wellness seminars and gluten-free bake sales. On the other side, my land, my rules, my wife, alive and laughing again, sipping sweet tea under the porch fan as cicadas roared in the trees. Catherine had fully recovered, though she still kept her nitro in the drawer next to the coffee filters. She'd started painting again, mostly landscapes now. She finished one of the bridge, done in moody gray-blue hues, with my John Deere in the background like a silent sentry. I hung it in the living room, right over the mantel. Fitting, I thought. A quiet trophy for a loud war. But the story didn't stay quiet. Not for long. Turns out I wasn't the only one out here who'd been pushed. The emails started coming in through a burner Gmail Dale helped me set up. Folks from Tennessee, Missouri, even as far out as Utah. People asking about property rights, about HOA overreach, about how to keep their driveways, wells, or private trails from being annexed by neighborhood boards gone wild. I didn't have all the answers, but I had one hell of a case file. So I started helping. Not professionally. Hell no, I'm still just a cattleman with a background in diesel engines and bad knees, but I could offer direction, advise on signage, surveillance, paper trails, when to call a lawyer, how to stand your ground without firing a shot. A guy from Georgia sent me a thank you basket after his HOA tried to claim emergency easement through his pasture. He caught them on camera, posted it online, and their board backed down in less than a week. Another fella in Arkansas printed out my bridge sign and put it on his barn. Said it worked like garlic on HOA vampires. I'll admit, I was proud. Still am. They started calling me the Creek Defender on one of those forums. Someone even made a meme, my face superimposed on a medieval knight holding a broken Jeep above his head like Excalibur. It was dumb. It was hilarious. I printed it and taped it to the fridge. But the best part? The local council eventually reached out. Not EcoVista, real county officials. After reviewing the whole mess, they offered me something rare, designation of the bridge as a strategic private access point, or SPAP. Sounded bureaucratic, but it meant this. No entity, HOA, state, or private, could claim access or influence over it without my written consent. Not now, not ever. I signed the papers with Catherine by my side, wearing the same flannel shirt I'd worn the day I threw Karen's Jeep into the creek. Fitting, I thought again. A few weeks later, I drove down to the bridge, parked, and took a walk to the center. The morning mist still clung to the creek like a soft blanket. Down below, the rocks glistened, and a few twisted pieces of plastic still poked up between stones, leftovers from the Jeep that started it all. I didn't clean them up. I wanted them there. Little fossils of hubris. A reminder, you don't just inherit land, you defend it. Not with force, with resolve. Back at the house, Catherine was watering the tomatoes. She looked up, smiled. Everything all right out there? Better than all right, I said, just taking in the view. She handed me a cup of coffee. We sat on the porch again, like we always did. Same place, same silence. But different men live in peace once they've seen what hell looks like just beyond the property line. We had built our walls, not to keep the world out, but to keep what mattered in.